If you've ever dug into your compost bin or garden bed and found barely any worms, you know that sinking feeling. Your soil's life support system is missing. Worms are the quiet engineers of the soil world, breaking down organic matter, cycling nutrients, and improving structure. But what if I told you that getting more worms isn't about buying them? It's about attracting them. Today, I'll share my experiment testing 5 popular worm attractants to find out which one truly brings in the most worms, fast. And I promise, the winner completely changed how I manage my compost and soil beds. For this test, I used 5 small soil beds, each identical in size and soil type. I then buried a different attractant in each bed, covering them lightly with soil and keeping moisture levels equal. Over 2 weeks, I observed worm activity, tunneling and castings around each patch. So here are the contenders. First up, coffee grounds, a classic favorite among gardeners, you know. Next, overripe bananas, sweet, soft, and supposedly just irresistible to worms. Then, we've got cooked rice, which is a bit of a surprise, but it's said to really heat up decomposition fast. After that, there's the manure-compost mix, often hailed as worm gold, honestly. And finally, fermented vegetable scraps, prepared bokashi style. That's pre-digested organic matter, absolutely teeming with microbes. At first, nothing dramatic happened. The coffee grounds stayed dark and dry and the banana started to soften, but, well, it attracted more ants than worms. The rice patch began to smell faintly sweet by day 3, showing early signs of microbial activity. The manure mix started to warm up, releasing that familiar earthy scent that usually signals good decomposition. But the real surprise came from the fermented scraps. Even on day 3, I noticed fine tunnels forming near the buried matter. Something was happening fast. By the 1-week mark, each attractant had its own story. Coffee grounds, well, still only a few small worms. Grounds alone seemed too dry and acidic without blending them with other materials. Bananas now, worms finally arrived, but slowly. They seemed more interested once the banana was breaking down into mush, which took several days. So, with the cooked rice, there's lots of microbial fuzz on the surface. You know, that white cottony layer that signals microbial life is really getting going. Worms actually started moving in around day 7, probably drawn in by the soft texture and this blooming microbial activity. Now, for the manure mix, plenty of worms are visible here, just as we expected. However, the deeper layer was heating up a bit too much, which made the worms stick close to the edges instead of burrowing right in. And then, with the fermented scraps, it was honestly like a worm festival. Dense clusters of worms showed up both inside and all around the decomposing matter. The smell was neutral, maybe a little sour, but not at all offensive. It was clear. This mix was really accelerating microbial breakdown in a way that worms absolutely loved. Fermented vegetable scraps, especially those prepared bokashi style, are partially digested by beneficial microbes before entering the soil. This means the organic matter is, well, pre-chewed and already teeming with bacteria, yeasts, and lactic acid organisms. Exactly what worms crave. Worms don't actually eat food scraps directly. They feed on the microbial film coating them. By fermenting, We jumpstart this process and create an environment alive with activity before the worms even arrive. In contrast, the coffee grounds were too inert, the banana too slow to rot, the rice needed time to balance, and the manure risked overheating. The fermented scraps hit the perfect balance, ready to eat, microbially rich, and instantly attractive. When organic matter ferments, lactic acid bacteria multiply rapidly. So, these bacteria soften plant fibers and release mild organic acids that lower pH, just enough to deter pests but not worms. As the fermentation stabilizes, the environment becomes rich in sugars, proteins, and enzymes that feed both microbes and worms. The result? A self-reinforcing ecosystem. Microbes attract worms, worms excrete castings full of even more microbes, and the soil structure transforms from lifeless dirt to living earth. You can actually recreate this at home really easily. First, collect vegetable scraps. Just be sure to avoid any meat, oil, or dairy. Next, place them in a bucket and add about 1 or 2 tablespoons of molasses, plus a splash of rice wash water or some diluted fermented plant juice. Then cover it loosely and let it sit for about 5 to 7 days until it smells mildly sour but definitely not rotten. So, just bury small handfuls of it in your garden soil or compost, and remember, keep the area moist and covered with mulch. Within a week, you'll notice an increase in worm tunnels and castings, a living sign that your soil biology is thriving. If you've been struggling to attract worms, just skip the expensive additives and synthetic worm starters. The secret lies in feeding your soil's microbes first, because where microbes thrive, worms follow. Fermented scraps may not be glamorous, but they create one of the richest, most biologically active foods for soil life you can make. The difference isn't subtle, it's visible, tangible, and long-lasting. So next time your compost pile looks quiet or your garden feels lifeless, remember, worms aren't drawn to scraps, they're drawn to life. And life starts with the microbial magic of fermentation.